She screamed, her voice piercing the night like a trapped animal. But no one came. The pestle came down again and again, silencing her cries as her father, Akande, continued with a blank, determined face. Blood mixed in the mortar, and the room reeked of iron and cooked herbs. His hands trembled, but he did not stop. He couldn't. The Baba had warned him. Hesitation will ruin the ritual. You must do it with a clear heart. Life had been merciless to Akande. He had been a proud farmer, but year after year, the rains failed him, leaving his land barren. His debt grew, and soon he began selling his tools and even the land itself. The worst blow came when his wife, Bose, left him. Unable to endure the constant hunger and humiliation, he was left with only Ayomide, his 8-year-old daughter, the light of his life. Her laughter was his only solace, but it also served as a bitter reminder of how badly he had failed her. Despite their struggles, Akande and Ayomide shared a bond that could not be easily broken. He would tell her bedtime stories about brave warriors and wise queens, drawing strength from her laughter when his world seemed darkest. Ayomide, though young, always seemed to understand her father's pain. "Papa," she often said, "one day I will grow up and help you. We will have plenty of food and you will never be sad again." Her words kept Akande going, even when the burden of his debt felt unbearable. Ayomide was the one who helped him collect firewood or plant the few seeds they could afford. They worked together, often singing little songs to make the time pass. One fateful day, as Akande sat outside his crumbling hut, head buried in his hands, Wale approached. Wale, his childhood friend, had once been as poor as him, but now flaunted fine clothes and jewelry. Akande couldn't hide his envy. "Wale, how did you turn your life around? You were struggling just like me," Akande asked, his voice tinged with desperation. Wale smirked and leaned closer, his voice low. "There is a man in the forest, an herbalist. He helped me find my way. But Akande, this path is not for weak men. It demands great sacrifice." At first, Akande dismissed Wale's words. He couldn't imagine himself visiting a man who dealt in dark powers. But as the day passed, Ayomide fell ill, and Akande couldn't afford medicine. When the debt collectors came and threatened to take what little he had left, something inside him broke. But as Akande grew more desperate, he became distant. Ayomide noticed her father's silence, but didn't question him. She trusted him completely, never imagining that he could harm her. The Baba's shrine was deep in the forest, surrounded by an eerie stillness. Skulls lined the pathway, and a heavy foul smell filled the air. Akande's leg felt like they would give way, but he forced himself forward. The Baba greeted him as if he had been expecting him. His voice was calm, almost hypnotic. "You have come for wealth, haven't you? I see the hunger in your eyes." Akande fell to his knees, explaining his plight. The Baba listened, nodding thoughtfully. Then he spoke the words that would haunt Akande forever. "Riches are possible, but they come at a price. The spirit demands the most precious thing in your life. Only through this sacrifice will your destiny change." When Akande realized the Baba was talking about Ayomide, he recoiled. "No, I can't do that. She's my only child. I can't lose her." The Baba smiled coldly. "Suit yourself, but remember, poverty is a curse that will follow you to your grave. Your daughter's spirit will understand. It is for her own good, after all." For days, Akande couldn't eat or sleep. The Baba's words echoed in his mind. Battling with his love for Ayomide, he would watch her sleep, her chest rising and falling gently, and feel his heart ache. Could he really do it? Could he sacrifice his only child? But every time he considered walking away from the idea, The image of debt collectors tearing apart his home resurfaced. He thought about Ayomide's future. If he didn't act, she would grow up in poverty, just as he had. He even tried to find an alternative, searching his memory for other ways to make money, but each idea felt futile. The weight of his debts and Ayomide's frail condition crushed him. One evening, after feeding Ayomide the last handful of garri in the house, he broke down in tears. She came to him and hugged him tightly. "Papa, don't cry. Everything will be okay," she whispered. Her innocent words felt like knives in his chest. He stayed awake that night, staring at the ceiling, and by morning, he had made his decision. Akande returned to the Baba's shrine, his steps heavier than before. The forest seemed darker this time, as if the spirits themselves knew what he was about to do. The Baba greeted him with a knowing smirk. "You have come to surrender, haven't you?" Akande nodded, his voice barely above a whisper. "I am ready." The Baba leaned forward, his eyes gleaming with something sinister. "Good, but understand this. Once you begin, there's no turning back. The spirits will take what is theirs, and you must play your role without faltering. Do you still agree?" Akande hesitated for a moment, but then nodded firmly. "I agree." Immediately, Baba instructed Akande to gather yams, red palm oil, white cloth, and specific herbs. Akande followed every instruction with shaky hands, his heart pounding with dread. The night of the ritual, Akande struggled to mask his anxiety. He needed Ayomide to follow him willingly. There could be no suspicion. He told her he was preparing a special meal to celebrate a breakthrough he had received. "Papa, what is the surprise?" she asked, her face lighting up with excitement. "You will see, my dear," he said, forcing a smile. "But I need you to help me with something first. Let's go to the hut." Ayomide loved helping her father and eagerly followed him, skipping along the path to their small hut. Inside, the Baba had already prepared the space. Symbols were drawn on the floor, and candles flickered ominously. Akande told Ayomide it was part of the special meal's preparation, and she nodded innocently, trusting him completely. "Sit here, my child," Akande said, pointing to a stool near the mortar. Ayomide obeyed, humming softly to herself as Akande and the Baba exchanged a brief, tense glance. The Baba began chanting incantations, his voice low and guttural, as if summoning something from another world. The air grew thick and the room seemed to darken despite the candlelight. Akande's hand trembled as he reached for the pestle. "Papa, why do you look so sad?" Ayomide asked, her voice breaking the heavy silence. "I am not sad," Akande lied, his voice shaking. "I just need you to sit still." "Okay." As the Baba's chant grew louder, Ayomide began to fidget. "Papa, I don't like this," she said, her voice tinged with fear. Akande hesitated, tears streaming down his face. The Baba's voice boomed. "Strike now! The spirits are watching." With a heart filled with anguish, Akande brought the pestle down. Ayomide's scream pierced the air, but the Baba continued his chanting. Undeterred, Akande struck again and again, each blow feeling like it tore his soul apart. The symbols on the floor began to glow, and a strange wind swept through the hut. The yam and blood mixture in the mortar bubbled as if alive, and a chilling voice echoed in the room. "It is done." The next morning, after the ritual, the villagers were startled by loud cries from Akande's hut. Neighbors rushed to find him wailing, cradling Ayomide's lifeless body. "She fell ill in the night." Akande sobbed. "She is gone." The villagers believed him at first, their hearts breaking for the man who had already suffered so much. Women gathered to confront him, bringing pots of steaming soup and baskets of yams. She was such a sweet girl, one woman said, wiping her tears. Always smiling, always helpful. Akande nodded, avoiding their eyes. The weight of their sympathy crushed him, but he couldn't let the truth slip. But as the days passed, whispers began to spread. Why didn't he call for help? One neighbor asked. Even in the dead of night, someone would have come. Another nodded. And why didn't we hear her crying before it happened? Children don't just die quietly. Akande overheard these murmurs and felt his heart pound in fear. He avoided meeting anyone's eyes, afraid that his guilt might betray him. Within a week of Ayomide's burial, Akande's life took an unexpected turn. He awoke one morning to find gold coins under his mat, shimmering in the faint sunlight. At first, he thought he was dreaming, but the Baba's words echoed in his mind. The spirit will reward you. The coins kept appearing daily, and soon strangers began visiting his farm. One man offered to buy his barren land for a hefty sum. It's useless now, the man said, but I have plans to irrigate it. Akande agreed, and with the money, he started a small trade business. As the years passed, Akande's success grew rapidly. He became a beloved figure in the village. The villagers marveled at his transformation. Akande, once pitied, was now celebrated. He built schools, donated to the poor, and hosted grand feasts for the community. To everyone else, he was a kind and generous man, a true philanthropist. But at night, in the silence of his lavish home, he was haunted by whispers. It began with faint laughter, like Ayomide playing in the distance. Then came the cries growing louder each night. Tell them what you did, the voice would say. Tell the world. The first time Akande heard Ayomide's voice, he thought it was a dream. Papa, why did you do it? She whispered, her voice soft but piercing. He jolted awake, sweating, but the room was silent. Days turned into weeks, and the whispers grew louder. Tell them what you did, the voice demanded. Akande tried to ignore them, but they followed him everywhere. He avoided the mortar, which now sat untouched in a corner of his storehouse. But the guilt was inescapable. Desperate to silence the voices, Akande sought spiritual help. He visited priests, diviners, and herbalists, but none could bring him peace. Finally, a priestess told him there was only one way to stop the torment. He had to confess publicly. On the next market day, Akande stood in the center of the square. Trembling, the villagers gathered around, curious to hear what he had to say. With tears streaming down his face, he revealed the horrifying truth, how he had sacrificed Ayomide for wealth. The crowd was turned into silence. Then came the murmurs, the gasps, and the cries of disbelief. Some cursed him, while others simply stared in shock. As Akande finished speaking, the sky darkened, and a cold wind swept through the market. Ayomide's laughter rang out, louder than ever. Akande clutched his head, his eyes wide with terror. No! Stop it! Leave me alone! He screamed, stumbling backward. The laughter seemed to surround him, pressing in from all sides. He saw flashes of Ayomide's face in the crowd, her innocent eyes staring at him, accusing him. Papa, why did you do it? A voice whispered in his ears. No, I didn't mean to. I had no choice. He cried, clawing at his face as if trying to erase the vision. The villagers watched in stunned silence as Akande tore at his clothes and staggered into the forest, his screams fading into the distance. The air was heavy with an unnatural chill, and no one dared follow him. The villagers searched for him for days, but found no trace. To this day, some say Akande became a wandering spirit, forever haunted by the laughter of the child he betrayed. Others believe he was consumed by the very spirit he had tried to appease. This story remains a haunting reminder of the price of greed. Akande's rise and fall are both tragic and chilling, a cautionary tale that still echoes through the village to this day. Know today that greed blinds men to the cost of their actions. Some sacrifices are too great to bear. So guys, this is where I'm going to be ending this video. Don't forget to like, share and subscribe. Thank you.